Hello, everyone, and welcome to Streamlining Data Protection with Rubrik and Microsoft Solutions. Today's webinar is sponsored by Rubrik and produced by Actual Tech Media. Speaking of Actual Tech Media, I'm one of their moderators. My name is Keith, and I am thrilled to be your moderator for today's event. But before we get to the incredible demos we've got for you, there are a few housekeeping items that'll help you get the most out of today's webinar. And the first is that we want this to be an informative event, so please ask questions. Just drop them in the questions box in your webinar control panel. That is also the place to let us know about any technical issues you might be experiencing. So if you can't hear something or see something, if the slides or any part of it are going bonkers, give your browser a quick refresh or two, which should fix most of your issues. If that doesn't fix it, let us know, and we will provide further technical assistance. I won't provide it because I'm no good at that, but some nice person will. All right, second, the handout section of your webinar control panel, which is right next to the Q&A tab, has some great free stuff to download. I'd especially like to call your attention to a PDF all about Rubrik data security posture management for Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now that's going to be discussed today, so it is great to have that resource available. I would recommend you go there and download that now. You'll also find there a link to the ATM Events Center, which has our calendar of more upcoming events just like this one. Okay, third, we are going to make one of you richer today via a $250 Amazon gift card. Now, you have to be in attendance during the entire live event to qualify for that card. The official terms and conditions of the drawing can be found in the handout section. Also, just look to the bottom. You'll find the link with the details there. And with that, what do you say we stop listening to me talk and get to the fantastic content? We have got 3 amazing demos coming your way, and I want to give a quick intro to each demo that you're going to be see here. The first one up is Damani Norman, the manager GTM Tech. Now, Damani is going to enlighten us about data protection in Azure. Azure, of course, is Microsoft's cloud platform. Following Damani will be Ryan Garrett, Sales Engineer PLS. Now, Ryan is going to be going over M365 anomaly detection and M365 cyber recovery options, including SharePoint and OneDrive data. And batting cleanup here is going to be Nam Peril, Field CTO for data security. Now, he's going to be covering Rubrik and Microsoft Copilot. Copilot, for those of you who are not aware, is Microsoft's AI platform. It's still fairly new, and it'd be nice to get a great overview of that. So Nam is going to be demonstrating how to use Copilot securely. So Damani is up first, and I am going to turn this over to him to start. So Damani, the floor is yours.
Hi, my name's Damani. I am a cloud architect here at Rubrik. I'm going to talk to you today about data protection in Azure. We have us logged into what we call the Rubrik Security Cloud. This is our platform that we use to do data protection both on-prem, in the cloud, and for SaaS platforms. Within the Rubrik Security Cloud, we're on this dashboard that shows where we have data protection and how it's being applied today. So one of the things that we can tell is what data you do not have protected, either by the native tool or by Rubrik Security Cloud. We can tell you what objects are protected by Rubrik. We can tell you what objects are protected by the native tools. And then we can also see where you have unprotected objects where there's no protection, either you did not choose to exclude or where there's just no protection at all. One of the other unique things about our platform, we're looking at how data is protected in the cloud, is that we can also tell you what the sensitivity of the data is that we've discovered. So we have a data sensitivity scanner. We'll go over that more in a session with Noam, who's going to talk about data security posture management. But as a part of our ability to scan and classify your data, from a backup perspective, we can tell you where you have sensitive data where you don't have sensitive data, and maybe help inform your decisions about what does need to be backed up and what doesn't need to be backed up in your environment. We also can give you some metrics around data that has been accessed in the last 30 days, data that we call relics. So this is where we're showing if the data has been abandoned or you've backed up in the past, but still have backups of it, where in the world you have data protection, and the types of data that you have. So managed disks in the case of Azure, Azure SQL databases, Azure virtual machines, Azure storage accounts. So we can tell you how much of that information you have, and again, what's being protected. So let's dive in a little bit into the actual mechanics of how we do data protection. So as you can see from our inventory page here, again, you can manage multiple platforms or multiple data sets within the platform. So in your data center, in the cloud, and then again, your SaaS platforms. So if we go here to the cloud instances, let's take a look at our Azure VMs. We can get a full list of the VMs that we have for protection and see how we would manage protection for them. We do recognize the resource groups, the subscriptions within Azure, as well as any tags that are on there. And what we can do with this is we can figure out how to best protect that data from a data policy perspective. So we have a separate workflow where we'll add your subscriptions to RSC. Once the subscriptions have been added, we'll automatically discover all of the Azure virtual machines, storage accounts, Azure SQL databases, Azure managed instances that you have in those accounts, and then start applying data protection as you've defined it. So one of the ways we can do data protection is by selecting the individual subscriptions and then clicking on Manage Protection. And what this will do is allow us to pick what SLA domain or backup policy we want to apply subscription-wide. When we do that, the backup policy will automatically detect any new VMs that have been inserted into those subscriptions and protect them with whatever that policy might be. We can do the same thing at a resource group level. So we can select the individual resource groups. We can select to manage the protection there. And then we can also do it from a tag perspective. The tag perspective is the most popular method for doing data protection because we can create a tag rule where we will discover the tags that you have on your various instances and allow you to apply protection based on those tags. So, for example, you might have a tag called environment, and it might have a value of production, for example. So if we create a tag this way, or we create a tag rule this way, what will happen is we will detect any VMs or any other objects that have the environment tag key and with a value of production, and will automatically apply the SLA domain to that that set of VMs or whatever has been tagged that way. So now, rather than having to come back to RSC and apply data protection manually, as you provision the resources, if you tag them properly, they'll automatically be backed up in the environment. We can look at applying this just to specific subscriptions, or if we say add to all subscriptions, anytime a new subscription is discovered and added, the objects that are tagged that way will also be backed up. So once we've created this tag rule with a unique name, if we click on submit, it'll go ahead and create the tag rule for us. And then we can click on manage protection here and select the policy that we want to use to do that backup. Now the SLA domains are exactly that. They're designed to mimic your business service level agreements. And so you can specify how often you want to do backups, how long you want to retain those backups for. And then you can also specify if you want to archive those backups. So one of the features that we have within the product is the ability to archive or tier your data to a lower tier of storage. So in the case of Azure VMs, we'll take that initial Azure Managed Disk snapshot, and then we'll copy that snapshot or move that snapshot off to Azure Blob Storage as either in the hot tier or the cold tier, the cool tier, or the archive tier to help reduce the cost for storing that data. It also puts that data on a separate storage platform, and we can replicate it to a different region or a different subscription to give you an air-gapped solution for that. Once we move the data off the blob storage, we also are making the data immutable. So if a bad actor comes in and wants to delete your data, we use the object lock within the Azure blob storage to guarantee that the data can't be deleted before its expiration period. So bad actors won't be able to go in and remove or delete that data. We can further secure the environment by copying that data to a separate tenant, or even to our own Rubrik Security Cloud, which is a separate identity domain, so that even if a bad actor does get in, maybe they do discover where your environment is. If it's in a separate tenant, that's a separate identity domain, or if it's in the Rubrik Security Cloud, they won't be able to actually even see those backups to even try to delete them. So we have multiple ways of securing your data against any sort of bad actors or malicious acts against it. So once we select the SLA domain, this is what's going to determine how often your backups are done, where they're archived or the secondary copy is made to, and actually help, if we're archiving the data, help save cost on your backup because we're not storing snapshots anymore. In the snapshot tier, we're storing data on that lower cost tier of storage. We can also apply data protection at the managed disk level. So if you want to protect individual disks, you can do that, or we can apply that data protection at the virtual machine level. This is a hierarchical application. So if we apply your a subscription level, for example, management or SLA domain, so we can guarantee we have a base level of protection everywhere. If we then apply a tag rule or maybe something at the individual VM level, it will override that tag rule or the subscription. So maybe we need a higher level of protection on an individual VM other than what we did at the subscription level, for example. Or maybe you want to exclude VMs, and would be a good way to do that. Once we have backups configured, we can then go in and look at doing restores. So as soon as we configure the scheduled backups, they'll fire off automatically and start doing their work. And then we can come back and look at what restores look like. The other thing that we do have in this view is, again, that data sensitivity. So we can look at an individual VM. So in this case, this is a file server, and we've done some scanning on it. We've determined that there is some highly sensitive data within it. We can tell you how many records, so about 7,000 files in this case, because it's a file server, are sensitive. We have 1.2 million that are medium sensitive, and then there's nothing that we detected that was of a low sensitivity level. So again, we give you an idea of what type of data is within this VM to help you make a decision as to whether you need to back it up or not. So now if I go into the VM itself, we will see this calendar view and an overview of the VM. So again, we see that same data security posture for the VM itself. We also see what SLA domain it's configured for, whether or not it's enabled to do file level recovery, which we'll go over in a second, and then a few other details about what size and where the VM is, etc. The other thing we have on this page is checkboxes or a calendar view that shows where backups have been done or when backups have been done and what points in time we can recover to. So if we go back to yesterday, for example, we can see that this VM has been backed up. It's been indexed, it's been archived, and it's had an application consistent backup made. So what all this means is from an application consistency perspective, if there was a database like a Microsoft SQL database, we would have quiesced it before taking the snapshot. So you have a application consistent backup of the database to recover from. It's been indexed, which means we can do file level recovery from it. And it's been archived, which means it's got a copy of its data sitting in blob storage. It also means that this backup is immutable because it has been archived. If I click on recover here, I'll get a set of options around the different types of restores we can do. So if I say, hey, let's recover files, I can go in and do individual file recovery. I can search. So we do have that Google-like global search where we can say, hey, let me go find a particular file and recover that individual file or set of files, depending on what I've searched for. It's a cumulative selection, so I can do multiple searches. Everything I've checked boxed will be recoverable. And then I'll get some options as to where I can recover the data to. So if I want to download it, which means put it into a storage account, I can, if they've installed an agent into the system, I can recover the data directly back into either the same Azure VM or a different Azure VM. And I can also export the data to another Azure VM or into a different folder. The other thing I have from a recovery perspective is I can restore the VM. This basically just rolls the VM back, shuts it down, removes the disks, add the new disks in, starts it back up again. By doing that, we preserve its IP address and any metadata about that VM. We can also export the VM, which means make a second copy of it. And we give full options around recovering from the original copy or the archive. So the source of where we're recovering the data from. We can recover to the same subscription or a different subscription. We can recover to the same region or a different region. So no matter where you need to recover the data from or back to, we can do that. If the VM was encrypted, we can re-encrypt the data with the correct set of encryption keys for the subscription and region that you're recovering into. And then, of course, you can repick any size information or what network that VM needs to go back onto. So full set of recovery options there for you. And then last but not least, we do have an option to mount disks back to the VM. So if you did need to remount the disks back into the VM itself and just be able to scan them within the same or a different VM, you have that option as well. So beyond recovery, that covers basic how we do backups, how we do restores. We also have some advanced capabilities around ransomware detection and threat hunting for our VMs. So if we come down here to our data threat analytics, we can see here where we are analyzing actively every backup that we've been doing, and we're looking for any anomalies or threats within those VMs. So this gives an added level of protection against things like ransomware or just malware that's doing bad things within your environment. So we're detecting both the ransomware or malware viruses themselves, as well as any events of an actual ransomware attack happening. So if a VM has been encrypted, or the data within that VM has been encrypted, or if it's a storage account or Azure SQL VM, for example, any of those things we're going to look for and be able to see what those events are. So if we go here to our anomaly detection, and we see we've detected 39 anomalies. You can see a full list. We do this both on-prem and in the cloud. So I'm going to go down here and search for our Azure VMs. And we can see that we did detect an anomaly. We see the lockbit virus within this VM. We see that there's been several suspicious events, deleted files, etc. So I click on the VM itself. I get a full report around when we've seen anomalies happen. So in this case, when there's been an encryption event or potential encryption event, and then the timeline or the details about what we've detected. If I click on Browse, I can see here, just as soon as this renders, where we have these suspicious events or anomalous events happening. So suspicious file means we think that it's been encrypted. Deleted files are just telling you how many files have been deleted, how many have been added, how many have been modified. The deleteds and the addeds kind of add up. So this kind of tells me, yes, there's probably been an encryption event. We also look for the entropy of the files to determine if an encryption event has happened, and that's what marks the file as suspicious. So if we go down into one of these directories, we can see, hey, here's an original file that we had that was deleted. It was replaced by the same file name with a .lockbit extension. We can see that that file has been added and it's been marked as suspicious. We scanned it. We saw a high level of entropy, so we think that this file has been encrypted. So now that we know this, we can surgically recover the files that we need, or we can recover the entire snapshot. We can roll the entire machine back to a known good point in time. We will suggest a good point in time, but if you want to, you can go back and look at others. So here we have this yellow exclamation saying, hey, anomalous behavior has been detected. This is where we think the ransomware event happened, and now we'll roll back to an earlier point in time. Once we've selected where we want to restore to, we just click next, and we get our normal VM level restore option. So I can restore or export the VM from here. The other thing that we can look at is threat hunting. So this is where we're looking or scanning for anomalous, for malware or ransomware in the environment itself. So we do get a feed from Mandiant, as well as a few other publicly known sources that will tell us the different YARA rules or different signatures of various ransomwares that are out there, and allow us to go through and scan for those within the backup data. And then if we find any of those, we will post an alert where your user can come in, look and see if the data has been encrypted or the ransomware has actually gone off or not. So we do this as actively looking for threats. And then we also have this threat hunting capability where you can create your own set of rules. So if you have a YARA rule or a file hash or a file pattern, you can go look for any of that within the backups, and then we will let you know where we found that malicious data, and you can take steps to eliminate it. And last but not least was just additional coverage that we have for other things within the environment. So we go back here to our threat hunting page. There we go. And sorry. There we go. So if we go back to our data protection page, we come back here to cloud. We also cover a couple of other use cases. So I started focused on Azure VMs. We also do detect and work with Azure SQL databases. So you can see here different Azure SQL databases that are here. Again, management or protection can be applied at the subscription level, the individual resource group, or server level. We can create those tag rules, or you can apply protection at the database level. If we go into one of these databases, the workflow is the same as what you see for the VMs. It's the same as for storage accounts. So there's a very familiar workflow where we can select what we want to recover from and what point in time we want to recover back to. So we do support point in time recovery, as well as recovering back to an individual snapshot. And then last but not least, so we support that for Azure SQL and Azure Managed Instances. And then we also support blob storage as well. So if you want to be able to look into a blob store and see what, I need to pick one that is being backed up, and see what, or protect the data that's in that blob store, we have the capability of showing what we've backed up and what you need to recover from there. So with that, that's the end of our demo. I'll turn it over to Ryan, who's going to talk to you about Office or M365 protection.
Thank you, Damani. My name is Ryan Garrett. I'm a sales engineer here at Rubrik, and I'm going to introduce Rubrik's latest M365 anomaly detection and M365 cyber recovery options. So let's get started. So as Damani discussed, data threat analytics gives us the ability to identify anomalies in your environment. For M365 specifically, we can look at your SharePoint and OneDrive data. So we're trying to look at that file data that you guys have out there. And the goal there is to ultimately identify, like Damani talked about, encryption events. Hey, a bad actor gets in, they kick off a mass encryption on a user system, which then encrypts their OneDrive, gets synced to OneDrive. Now you have encryption in OneDrive. Or maybe they had a SharePoint site that they were syncing. Now your entire HR site is encrypted because the bad actor got access to that person's system. And then the other situation that we're really after is, hey, bad actor got in, maybe they got access to a global admin, maybe they got access to, an individual user. They use that user to phish a bunch of other users. And ultimately they got access to a bunch of systems. They exfiltrated the data, so took that data externally. And then they went through and did mass deletion. So being able to understand, hey, are these files encrypted or was there just a mass deletion event? and just being able to identify those and alert the customer that, hey, you have something anomalous going on in your M365 infrastructure. So let me go ahead and show you what that looks like in the interface. So I've kind of dove into the data thread analytics, and I'm going to skip over to anomalies. And we have a lot of anomalies in our lab here, but let me go ahead and look at the last 30 days, and I'm going to look for specifically OneDrive data. And you guys can see here in Ryan's OneDrive, we have about 4K suspicious files, and they were all added. So if I click on this individual's OneDrive, you can see here just on the basic screen, hey, it looks like on, December 19th, that's when these, suspicious files appeared. You can scroll down, there's an event timeline that kind of gives you kind of a story, right? So take this to the security folks and say, hey, here's the story of what happened. You can see over here, the suspicious files gives you kind of a summary of those suspicious files. So you can see, hey, it looks like it's a ransomware or encryption event. And then just like Damani did, if I click over here back onto the browse, I can switch over here and I can actually browse into those individual files. So, hey, I'm going to look in this file share on this particular OneDrive. And then when I get in here, it looks like there's a folder called cache. And then when I get in here, there's a couple of folders in here. And if I dive into these, same thing, you guys can see this is suspicious file was added. It has a lock bit, so it was encrypted. Same thing on Damani's, case. You can check these boxes if you had modified or added. In most cases on the M365 side, what we're seeing customers do is just click this recover full snapshot. And then from there, same options here. You can click this change snapshot. It'll tell you, hey, this is the snapshot that we saw anomalous behavior. This is the snapshot that we would recommend you going to. And if there's any previous snapshots, you would be able to see those. But once you have the snapshot selected, you can click next. And then in this case, hey, I want to go ahead and put this back into, Ryan Garrett's OneDrive. And then we have some options here. Hey, do you want to restore this to the original user? Do you want to restore this to, another user? Maybe you want to restore it to a test mailbox, or a shared mailbox, and then let security kind of go through and see what's going on. Or another option is maybe you want to download it as a zip file and then allow the team to go through and analyze, hey, what happened? What's going on with these files? In this case, I'm going to send it back to the original user. And then I'm going to do just an in-place recovery and just let it append duplicate objects so I don't overwrite any other work that this user had in there. From there, I can click recover. Ultimately, that's going to kick off that recovery and go replace all of those files that were encrypted. And the same situation works if you guys had mass deletion. So if you had a mass deletion event, you can go through the same process, select the snapshot you want to go back to, and quickly get back to that snapshot. The overall goal here is just to get you guys back up and running as fast as possible. So not only identify the situation or the incident, but then give you the nearest snapshot to get you back up and running with the clean data that you guys need. Cool. I'm going to switch gears here and I'm going to switch over to some of our prioritized or operational recovery. So let me go ahead and switch over to the M365 dashboard. So I'm going to go back to the global dashboard, go into our data protection, and then go over to our SaaS data protection and into M365. So from here, you guys can see, hey, we're backing up this Rubrik demo M365 subscription. We have 36 mailboxes, 64 OneDrives, 230 SharePoint sites, and 40 teams. So from here, what I can do is I can drill down into the subscription. So I can click here. And then one of the handy things that we provide is the ability to bring over groups. So if I click on groups, I can hit add group here. And what I can do is I can bring over your Azure AD groups. So if you guys have, think of groups for your C-suite, for your IT folks, your legal folks, any of those groups you guys have in Azure, we can bring those groups over into Rubrik. And what that does is that gives us a list of users that are available in those groups. For example, you can see here, my finance group here has 171 users in it. So from here, what this allows us to do is ahead of a cyber attack, we can add all of these groups. So we can ultimately create a blueprint to say, hey, I'm going to restore, maybe my C-suite first, then my IT folks, and then HR and legal and our communications team. So that way we can, get through recovering from this attack. So once you make up that plan and you have these groups in here, this gives you the ability to click here and say, hey, I want to recover all of finance. So I need to get finance back up and running. And let's say that their entire Exchange environment was down. You can select Exchange here and you can select two different types of recovery. So we have two options. And so not only can you prioritize which group of users that you guys want to recover, but you can also select what type of recovery you want for those users. So for example, maybe your C-suite, you guys need to get everything back for their Exchange mailbox. You want all emails, all of their calendar, their contacts, everything back up. You can do what we call as mass recovery or all data recovery. I just want to get everything back into their system. So you select all recovery. But hey, maybe let's say this was IT. We have 100 IT folks. We want to get IT up and running very, very quickly. So that way they can continue to get us back up and running from this cyber event. So we're going to do prioritized data recovery. So with the prioritized data recovery, we give you the option to choose anywhere from 1 day to the last 30 days. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and change this to 30 days. And then we give you the option to recover all the remaining items that aren't recovered in the first 30 days. What that means to you is that what we're going to do is we're going to kick off recovery for these 100 IT folks, and we're going to recover the first 30 days or the last 30 days first. So what that looks like to an actual user is that I'm in my email. I don't see any email. I don't have any contacts. I don't have any calendar invites. I don't have anything. It's just a blank mailbox. As soon as Rubrik kicks off the recovery, we will see all of the contacts. We'll see all of the upcoming calendar invites, and we'll see the last 2 week of calendar invites. And then we'll see 30 days of email populate. So the last 30 days will start to populate. Then it's going to pause for a second while it continues to restore all of the rest of the 100 users. Once we get done with all 100 users, we have the last 30 days for the 100 users. We're going to go ahead and continue to restore the rest of the mailbox if we have this box checked. So that's everything from day 31, day 45, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And the ultimate goal of this feature is to get folks back up and running very, very quickly. So like I say, in the case of an IT team, you want them to be able to get back in and continue to collaborate and communicate and be able to, go to their meeting invites, be able to have all their contacts in their phones so that way they can call folks and get you guys back up and running from an event. But they don't necessarily need the emails from 31 days ago or, 2 months ago. And so that's the goal is let's get all of the critical data back into their mailbox as soon as possible. But we give you two options. Like I say, you guys can do prioritize recovery and say, hey, I want the last 30 days. Or you can say, hey, I want everything depending on the group that you guys are targeting. And this feature is available today. It's available for Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, and it'll be coming out very soon for Teams as well. And one of the nice things is when you guys get to this next button, you guys have those same options that we were just talking about when we were doing the anomaly detection and restore snapshot. So you get to the next screen. Hey, we're going to use the latest snapshot. And then we're just going to hit recover and it's going to dump that information right back in. So it's an override of the original location. So very, very simple. Cool. Well, that was all I was going to discuss today. Like I say, I talked about M365 anomaly detection, and then we talked about our cyber recovery options for M365. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you guys about both those topics. Now let's go over to Noam.
Thanks a lot, Ryan. So, hey, everyone. My name is Noam. Super happy to be here today. I actually joined Rubrik. Well, it seems rather recent, seems like yesterday. I joined Rubrik through the acquisition they made in the DSPM space. And, when people ask me what I feel about Rubrik, people tend to say maybe excited, words like that. Well, I'm absolutely thrilled. And I'm thrilled to share with how we continue to innovate with Rubrik today. And specifically, I want to share what we do with Copilot. So we get a lot of customers coming to us and saying they're trying to roll out Copilot and they're having challenges with the risks. I'd love to share really just a couple of slides to show and share what these challenges are. So what Copilot allows organizations to do, I think is very clear, right? It can allow Cheryl or Evan to query Copilot, query their organizational data, and get a response from Copilot based on the data that it was trained on. Now, the problem that we're seeing with Copilot is if you allow Copilot to run on all your organizational data, it will retrieve answers based off of that data, meaning that potentially Cheryl from marketing could be accessing through Copilot, could be accessing HR data. Now, problem number one, what you see here to your right is your 365 data. Could be a SharePoint, could be OneDrive. We don't know what's what. So we don't really know where our marketing assets are. We don't really know where our HR files are. We don't know. So when Copilot runs and we onboard Copilot, Cheryl could naively, unintentionally access data through Copilot that before she had to be rather malicious to try and access this data. But now, unintentionally, it allows Cheryl to access files that she might not need access to. So, stage one, what we help our customers achieve is simple. It's difficult to achieve, but the result is simple and easy to consume data classification. So, after stage one, we can know where we have our marketing data, where we have our most sensitive HR data, and could be anything that is sensitive to the specific business. Doesn't need to just be HR resources, right? But right now, we can at least know what data we have where. We still haven't fixed the unintentional access. We can also see that we might have some org-wide shared sensitive data. We still haven't tackled that, but at least now we know what we have where. So stage number two, what we can help our customers with is, now that we know what data we have, we can integrate with the Microsoft sensitivity labels, the MIP labels. And by integrating with those, what we can do is apply those labels on the files. We do that automatically because we as Rubrik, we can be your single source of truth for data classification. So we classify the files, and then we can utilize those MIP labels. That's one. The second thing is by identifying, for example, org-wide access. So by identifying access patterns, we can remove overly exposed files so that only the right groups and right people have access to the right data. So by combining access removal and MIP placement, we get the following result. So now, by applying the labels, Cheryl can only access marketing assets using Copilot, and Evan can clearly access the HR resources that he needs. So how does it all come together? If we think of Rubrik's approach, one, it's actually classifying your data automatically. You don't need to do anything. Once you have Rubrik deployed, we automatically classify the data. We have our built-in classifiers, and you can add your own as well. But what's super important to note is that it's not a hard lift to make the classification start working for you. We can then apply those classification labels to the data. So by integrating with the Microsoft sensitivity labels, we can apply the correct labels. We can reduce overexposure, such as public and org-wide shared links, and we can minimize and manage user access. Let's see this in action in the real platform. So if I click on Rubrik's asset inventory, and today we'll focus on how we classify information inside of SharePoint. So for example, we can see there's different SharePoint sites here. We can also scroll a bit down and we'll see OneDrive. So if we want to see what's inside of this SharePoint, you can easily see that this SharePoint site has personal data, financial data. We can also look at the different types of files that we found inside. If we want to drill down, look how easy it is. All I need to do is say hover above the personal category, find social security numbers, click on that. This will take me to the Data Explorer, where I can filter and find the specific files in which we found these social security numbers. So by finding the sensitive data, we don't stop there. We show you this Excel file, we pass it down, so you can see exactly where and how the sensitive data looks like inside of this file. Remember what I mentioned before. I mentioned that we also analyze the exposure of the file. So in this example, we have highly sensitive data that's publicly shared. So we provide the exposure, and you can see the link here. And we also integrate with the MIP labels. So in this example, we found that there's no MIP label, and we provide you with the option of applying the MIP label here. You can just click on that, and you can see that we integrate with the labels, and you can now apply them. We don't just look at this from the specific file level. We have a holistic approach, and we summarize it in our data security violations page. So in the example we just walked through, if we look at publicly exposed sensitive data, if we see this OneDrive, if I click on it, you can see that this provides me with the overview of the violation. I can open the appropriate ticket, and the violation details shows me the files that are publicly accessible. That is one example. The other example is if we think of the MIP labels and how we integrate with that, and we can really help you leverage your MIP labels. See that I clicked on unprotected data. We have this violation of sensitive files missing a confidential MIP label. Now we can integrate with your MIP labels wherever they are and find files that are potentially missing MIP labels. By the way, we do this for S3 as well. But in this example, I'll focus on 365. So when I click on the SharePoint drive, in this example, the violation details will show me the list of files that do not contain the appropriate confidential MIP label. So just to reiterate, our classification engine found these sensitive data types inside of the file, but we found that they don't contain the appropriate label. Now we can do it at the whole site level. We can apply the label here and apply the confidential label on all of these files here. So you don't have to do it at the file level. It is an option, but you can also do it at the whole site level as well. So just to recap what I went through today. So one, we saw how Rubrik's engine can perform the data classification for you. You do not need to configure anything. We can also integrate and understand your business sensitive data. That's one. Second, we look at overexposure of files, what's perhaps publicly shared, what's org-wide shared. And I cannot stress this enough that and I will confidently say that for every customer of ours, whenever we run a Copilot readiness assessment, or whenever we run a pilot and we start onboarding the platform, we always find dumps of data that are mistakenly overshared. In many cases, we found full company strategy documents publicly shared. We found highly sensitive W-2s publicly shared. And I know it's so difficult for customers because just gaining visibility and control is something that's very difficult to do for your 365 estate. But here you see how in a very easy way, you can just go about understanding what's overexposed and quickly finding this overexposed data. So that's one. That was two. That was after classification. And number three, as we integrate with the MIP labels, we can help you apply these labels, leveraging all the downstream DLP effects that you want once those labels are applied. The challenge that we see with customers is how do we really make sure that these labels are applied? It's very difficult to trust that the end users, even if they try to apply, did they apply it correctly, right? Is there a mismatch between the sensitivity of what our classification engine found and what the end user labeled, right? So we can help you find those mismatches so that the risk of sensitive data ending up at the wrong person's hands, hopefully this won't even be a compromised identity that can leverage Copilot to find all this sensitive data. So we want to roll out Copilot safely. We can do that by leveraging everything that I mentioned above. So thank you very much for listening. And I'm always happy to have a conversation about the topic. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Really happy to have a conversation on this topic. Thanks again.
And thank you, Nam, and everyone else who did those fantastic, amazing demos today. So got some poll questions for you right now. Please give us your feedback on which one do you believe would most benefit your organization? There are 3 options here. Demo 1, Microsoft Azure Protection. Demo 2, Microsoft M365. And Demo 3, Data Security Posture Management, DSPM. Let us know which one of those you think is going to be have the greatest value to your organization. Now, as a quick recap, for these 3 demos, they covered important topics like data protection in Azure, how to spot threats to M365, as well as recover from an attack. And we got an education from Nam in Microsoft Copilot and how to work with it in a safe and secure fashion. So I don't know about you, but those demos were worth their weight in gold. I learned a ton, and I bet all of you out there did too. So we have one more poll question for you today. You have another second to vote for this one, and then we got one more. And while you vote in this one, please let us know if you would like to schedule a meeting to discuss one or more of these demos in depth. You've got options there as well. So while you vote in that particular poll, I am going to give away our $250 Amazon gift card. Now, as I said at the beginning, you do have to be present for the entire event to be eligible to win this prize. And we do have a winner for the webinar today, and that winner is Sean Morrill from Minnesota. Congratulations to you, Sean, and sit tight because we are going to be in touch to get you your card ASAP. So I'm going to sign off here while you all keep voting. And on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Rubrik for making this event possible. Thanks, as always, to you attendees for being here, for your great questions. I love spending time with you, and I hope you had a great time today. I sure did. That's about all from here, folks. Go out and enjoy the rest of your day now.